Hello again and welcome to the 140k Imperial Guard Tactics video. Now before we get into today's video, I would like to say a big thank you to Matthew Dolbing for sending in some awesome pictures of his Imperial Guard army crushing the foul Xenos Elder forces. Had to really like this army, Matthew. I love the mixture of sort of Gene Stealer Cult, Necromunda and regular guard models. I think it all works really well together. I think if anyone out there is wondering whether those Orlok Gangers are good for guardsmen, take a look at these pictures because the answer is a resounding yes. They make for a fantastic alternative guardsman sculpt. To be honest, a lot of the Necromunda models do. A lot of the Necromunda models make for good alternative guardsman sculpts. Thank you for sending these pictures in, Matthew. Absolutely fantastic army. If anyone else has got any cool pictures they want me to use in my videos, please post them on my Facebook page. There will be a link down in the description below. So in today's video, guys, we're going to be taking a look at how you can beat the new kids on the block, Primaris Marines. Now, some of you were saying, Mordian Glory, Primaris Marines have been out for 3 years. How are the new kids on the block? Well, they are definitely the new hotness in the tournament scene. And amazingly, it's Primaris Infantry, which are the sort of new meta that are tearing everything up. You do have things like Centurions, you still have the Repulsor Executioners, sure. But mass Primaris Infantry is making a fierce reputation for itself on the tournament scene. It is. And for good reason. It's actually quite point efficient now. You see, back in the day, Primaris weren't really, well, back when they were first released, Primaris weren't really tournament competitive because you were just paying more points for slightly better Marines, but they weren't really worth it. Now that Marines have got loads and loads of buffs and loads of special rules, and many of those special rules directly affect Primaris only, or favour Primaris, you're seeing a lot of people taking Primaris armies. You're also, thanks to the fact, you're also seeing, not just because of special rules, but thanks to the fact that the Primaris range has slowly but surely grown over the last 2 to 3 years. I mean, you went from having, intercessors and reavers and aggressors to now you've got infiltrators, incursors, eliminators. The range of models has basically doubled, if not more. Don't forget suppressors. The range of models has essentially doubled, if not more. Think of all the Primaris Lieutenants that have come out in this time. So you're gonna, and because they're really good now, you're going to be seeing a lot of them. You see, what you're seeing a lot of is infiltrators. You're seeing a lot of infiltrators because they can deploy up really close. You see, one of the big disadvantages of Primaris is they didn't really have a lot of transportation options outside of the repulsor. Well, if you can appear 9 inches away from your enemy's deployment zone, you don't need to worry about transportation options. You're already there. And the great thing about the new sort of infiltrators and incursors, and Raven Guard and for example as well, and Marine regiments and successors, which allow you to jump up the board quickly. They've got a lot of units that can deploy 9 inches away from the enemy deployment zone. The reason it's just great. They're tactically flexible though, because Primaris are primarily, pun intended, a shooting army. Now they can punch in combat. They can. A Primaris basic Marine on the charge has 3 attacks. Strength 4. And if he's in the Assault Doctrine, they're AP -1. That's a basic dude. But they've all got guns. So that's what makes Primaris really interesting to fight, or to use, because they can either be long range, flexible, tactical, blasting away with bolters, and if they don't move, bolter drill. Or they can get up in your face, launch up a volley of bolter rounds, and punch the crap out of you. They have tactical flexibility. Great, fine. As a guard player, what you're typically going to see is those Primaris wanting to get up close and personal quickly. Reason being is that they're going to have to get the most, because we're a horde army. They're going to have to clear that screen as quickly as possible, and the way they do that is by taking advantage of all the attacks they have, so shooting and close combat. They're also going to want to start chewing through the screen to get the juicy tanks behind. So Primaris will typically be deploying relatively close forward, shredding you with bolter fire, charging in and trying to finish off the rest. And it's a difficult thing to counter. It's a difficult thing to counter because you're having to pump twice as many lasgun shots into one of those squads But, you know, a Primaris Marine is like 17 points versus an all tactical Marine cost of 13 points. So you're having to put in double the amount of shots to kill a squad. That's only 33% more expensive. So they're only paying a 33% increase, whereas you're having to put double the amount of damage in. So they're on a net profit on that side. So, how do you beat it? How do you beat it? Because it's not easy, guys. It's not easy at all. New Marines are cleaning shop left, right, and centre. But the least you can do is bring the right tools to the job. Bring the anti-meta equipment. And guys, you've got to spam that damage 2 weaponry. Spam it, spam it, spam it. You've got to take advantage of the fact that Primaris don't really have a great answer to mortal wounds yet, either. Sure, Iron Hands might have a 6 but feel no pain, and that is great, but it is not a really good psychic defense. You've also got to take into account that if you actually look at it, most Primaris units don't have an invulnerable save. The Firstborn Marines have not yet felt too comfortable with passing out the Storm Shields. Okay? So, whilst they are intimidating, you know, they can be killed. To quote the great Sergeant Johnson, we've all run the simulations. They're tough, but they ain't invincible. You just got to know where to hit them. And you've got to bring the damage 2 weaponry. Damage D3 is okay, but it's a little random. You need to know that when that shot goes through, it is going to kill. And that takes away one of the biggest advantages that Primaris Marines have, which is their 2 wounds. Their 2 wounds is a really big problem. Now, if we start looking at damage 2 weaponry that we can spam cheaply, we're looking at autocannons, faux show. We're then looking at plasma guns and possibly plasma pistols. Now, why am I saying plasma pistols in there, guys? Right. Well, I just talked about how Primaris are going to want to try and get up close and personal with you. Well, guess what? That means your plasma pistols are going to be in range from turn 1, which is good. Very, very good. Now, so if your opponent is bringing a lot of Primaris infantry, plasma pistols are actually going to be really good because these infiltrators are going to be taking 33% more plasma shots if you put a plasma pistol and a plasma gun in every squad. And don't forget, really important thing is that plasma pistols are 5 points no matter who takes them. The Lord Commissar, a company commander, a veteran, everyone gets a plasma pistol for 5 points. None of this, if you're Blitzskill 3 plus model, it costs you more. Okay? Now, you're going to want to be overcharging, so think about it carefully when you're putting them on your characters. Now, if you're taking a lot of plasma, you're going to want those reroll ones to hit. In comes Cadians, but if you still want to be mobile, for those of us that want to stay mobile, you're going to want to be looking at Commissar Yarrick. Okay? There's another reason you're going to be looking at Commissar Yarrick. Is you're probably going to want to make him your warlord. Now, why would you want to make Yarrick your warlord? Well, number 1, he gets the Master of Command trait, so that's an extra order. You're going to need him. Number 2, he's got a 4+ invulnerable save. That's really good, because guess what? We're talking eliminators. Eliminators are going to be targeting your homeboy Yarrick a lot, and you're going to need him to survive. If he's got a 4+ invuln, which makes a big difference, but the real reason why he's important is he's got the Iron Will ability. Okay, which means when he gets down to his last wound, he gets a 3+ feel no pain. That is really good to keep him alive. Really good. Don't forget, crazy as it might sound, you could consider taking a command squad with a medic. Not often seen, but you've got a 50-50 chance of putting D3 wounds back on Yarrick. I'd say it's probably worth it. I'd say it's definitely worth it. You can sacrifice one, all those other veterans are going to be toting plasma guns or grenade launchers. You can sacrifice one plasma gun to just take a medic in your army. If it pays off, great. If it doesn't, whatever. But you're going to need. I never would normally recommend a medic, but against the Primaris and those eliminators, you're going to want them. Okay. Now, speaking of eliminators, before we go off topic. You're going to want to have things that can target things out of line of sight, because the new eliminators are able to go all wanted, sort of oldish film now, and curved bullets around corners. Okay, which means they ain't going to need line of sight to you, which means you don't want to have to be relying on line of sight to get to them. So we are thinking either highly mobile units, like Valkyries, going around the sides, dropping people off, flying over the top, or we're thinking Wyverns or Mortars. Now the problem with Wyverns and Mortars is that they don't take away the enemy's ability to get a good cover save. I don't think Wyverns ignore cover anymore. I know they still reroll the ones to wound. I don't think they ignore cover anymore. Correct me if I'm wrong down below. Either way, it's not a reliable way of shredding through them. Unless, well, no, just not really. There are a couple of other options you want to think about. Okay, the fact that you can take the Dagger of Chusaka and outflank a squad of plasma veterans could be useful, but you've got to be careful because I believe Eliminators to stop you from deep striking within 12 inches of them or coming on reserves within 12 inches of them. So it's not a reliable way of doing it. But it is an option. It is an option out there. I'd probably say you're still best going for just Wyverns. They're only going to overtake 3 squads of Eliminators, and there's only going to be 3 men in each squad. So if you concentrate your barrage fire, you will get them. But they're not. But it's difficult because they're 2 wounds. They've got cover. They're hard to shift. Anyway, back to what I talked about before. Protecting your character. Yarek's a good choice. Ogre and Bodyguard is also a pretty good choice because they're going to be trying to snipe your characters out. You're going to want your characters to live. You're going to need those orders because think about it. They're going to be tying you up. You're going to want to have to be able to fall back and shoot them. So Ogre and Bodyguards are important. Yarek is important. Destroying things out of line of sight is important. But back to the damage to weapons because that's the main crux of the argument here, guys. The main crux of it. Okay, you're going to want, like I said, you're going to want damage to weapons. We've talked about plasma pistols. Plasma guns are an obvious choice. 7 points, overcharge it every turn. Doesn't matter, overcharge it every turn. You guys aren't going to be alive long enough if you don't. So really, overcharge it. Get that double tapping. Now, I wouldn't recommend investing too much in any one super unit against Primaris, guys. I wouldn't recommend it. They are really good at just eliminating high value targets. You're going to want to overwhelm them. Okay, now remember the autocannon. Okay, now the autocannon, some of you will be thinking that's a bit of a weird choice, but it's flat 2 damage and it's AP -1. Now Marines in cover do over 2 plus save. Enter left from stage the Astropath. You are going to want Astropaths. They have the ability called Astral Divination. You select an enemy unit that is within 18 inches. All friendly guard units within 6 inches of the Astropath that then target that enemy unit ignore cover. So suddenly you've got your autocannons going in there and the enemy only has a 4-up save. It's a 50-50 chance. Every wound you sneak through is going to kill a guy. That is big. That is really big. Like I said, you're also going to want to think of ways of getting mortal wounds out there. You're going to want at least probably 1 Primaris Psych who can just bang out the smite every turn. This is 1 job. Maybe 2. Maybe I would consider taking a couple of either 3 Astropaths and 1 Primaris or 2 and 2. Other ways of getting mortal wounds out there is through sniper rifles, but they're only 1 damage. I say you want to be banging out a couple of smites a turn, and have the ability to give the majority of your army ignore cover. That's what you're gonna want to aim for. Now we've spoken a lot about infantry, but taking it, you're gonna probably also want some tanks. Now you're gonna want your 3 tank commanders. You're gonna need your 3 tank commanders. Okay. Now, there's a few ways, you're going to want your tank commanders, and really, you can stick with battle cannons because they do wound on 2s. Okay, that's important. They do wound on 2s, but they are only D3 damage, which makes them a bit iffy. If I was to take a battle cannon, I'd probably just take the 1, and I'd make it Hammer of Sunderance. So it's got the flat 3 damage. I'd then really consider the Executioner, because it's a plasma tank. It's got a flat 2 damage. And it's the cheapest one, guys. You're going to be wanting to put plasma cannons on the sponsons as well. Heavy bolt sponsons are now, like, they're alright. They're okay. Heavy bolt sponsons are still the take-all-comers. But plasma sponsons are the current anti-meta choice. You're going to want them. You're going to love them. Okay? You could consider the Exterminator. I know, controversial choice, okay? But it is 8 shots, which are all damage 2. It's 8 autocannon shots. And that thing is due for a buff sometime soon. It's got to go up to heavy 6 soon. If it goes up to heavy 6, which it might not do, it will be an auto include. If it stays at heavy 4, it's still a good choice to have. Still a very good choice to have. That really does cover most of it, guys, to be honest. It really does cover most of it. I mean, in terms of killing those eliminators, I've just thought about this now. I talked about wyverns. You know what's probably better at killing them? Basilisks. Basilisks are probably better because you'll be wounding them on the on 2s. You will be cutting through their bullshit camo cloaks. You'll be on a -3, so they'll be, they're going to be on a rubbish save, and it's D3 damage, which is enough. It's enough to, a couple of basilisks should flatten a squad of eliminators a turn every turn, and hopefully the enemy's going to have their hands full dealing with other stuff. Basilisks are coming pretty anti-meta, guys. They're pretty good. That's the tools that you're going to need. They're the tools you're going to need to deal with the Primaris. I spoke about anti-meta Mordian Iron Guard. Mordian Iron Guard are kind of anti-meta, guys, because your infantry is going to be receiving a lot of charges. The enemy is going to want to use that shock assault rule liberally, and for them to take 33% more damage on the way in is a big deal. If they lose a couple of Primaris on the way in, that's big. That is big. So, guys, let me know what you think. Put your comments down below. What are the current anti-marine, anti-Primaris strategies? We've obviously only covered one small aspect. We're mainly focusing on the Primaris infantry. I totally get that. There are obviously, of course, other Primaris units out there which are really, really powerful. But this is one army which is starting to rise to the tournament ranks. And it's one you're going to want to be aware of and want to know how to beat. So these are my recommendations. As much damage to weaponry as you can get your hands on. Thank you for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. And I'll see you guys next time.